The orbital station called Apex Prime floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Its halls were filled with beings from across the galaxy, each one different from the next. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of living crystal. They all came here for one reason. They wanted to join the Stellar Guard, the most elite fighting force in known space. Captain Taiyang Park walked through the crowded corridor with steady steps. He was human, which made him unusual here. Humans were new to the galactic community. Most aliens looked at his kind like children playing with toys they did not understand. Taiyang felt their stares but ignored them. He had a job to do. The testing center was a massive room with white walls that seemed to glow. Hundreds of candidates stood in organized lines waiting for their names to be called. Taiyang found his place in line and looked around. Near him stood a massive creature with 4 arms and gray skin covered in battle scars. Further away, a group of insect-like beings communicated through clicking sounds. Everyone here was a warrior from their world. "Nervous?" a voice asked in Korean. Taiyang turned to see Yori, another human from Earth. She was smaller than him but had sharp eyes that missed nothing. They had trained together back on Earth before volunteering for this exchange program. "Should I be?" Taiyang replied with a slight smile. Yori shrugged. "The failure rate is 73%. Most species send their best warriors, and most of them fail. We are humans taking a test designed by aliens for aliens." "Then we will just have to be better," Taiyang said simply. A sound like thunder filled the room. Everyone fell silent. At the front of the hall, a massive door opened. Through it stepped a being that looked like it was carved from blue crystal. It stood 3 meters tall, and light seemed to bend around its body. This was Velthar, the testing administrator. His voice echoed without him needing to speak loudly. "Candidates, you stand before the Armory proficiency test. For 200 years, this examination has separated the worthy from the weak. Only those who pass may join the Stellar Guard. Only the best of the best stand with us." Velthar's crystalline face turned toward the human section. His eyes, which glowed like blue fire, focused on Taiyang and Hiyori. "Some of you come from species that barely know the stars. Some of you think your primitive ways will carry you through. You are wrong." Taiyang felt anger rise in his chest but kept his face calm. Hiyori's jaw tightened beside him. Velthar continued. "The test is simple. You will enter a chamber alone. Inside, you will find standard Armory equipment. Combat drones will activate after 15 minutes. Your task is to neutralize all drones using the provided weapons. The drones learn from your tactics. They adapt. They become harder to defeat with each passing second." A holographic display appeared in the air, showing previous test footage. A warrior with scales fired a plasma rifle at hovering spheres. The drones dodged, returned fire, and eventually stunned the candidate into unconsciousness. The video switched to another species, this one with 6 legs and natural armor. The result was the same. Failure. "You may not leave the chamber until you succeed, fail, or surrender," Velthar said. "Injuries are common. Death is rare but possible. If you wish to withdraw, do so now." Nobody moved. Pride kept everyone in place. "Good," Velthar said, though his tone suggested he thought they were all fools. "We begin immediately." Names were called in an alien language that the translation devices converted to each being's native tongue. One by one, candidates were led away to their testing chambers. Some walked with confidence. Others tried to hide their fear. Taiyang watched a muscular alien with red skin enter a door and disappear. 20 minutes later, that same alien was carried out on a stretcher, unconscious. The next candidate, a being made of what looked like living metal, emerged victorious after 43 minutes. The crowd whispered in respect. "Captain Taiyang Park," the speakers announced. Taiyang stepped forward. Yori grabbed his arm quickly. "Be smart, not brave," she said. "Always am," Taiyang replied. He followed a small robot guide through a series of corridors. The station felt colder here, more isolated. Finally, they reached a heavy door marked with alien symbols. The robot beeped once and floated away. The door slid open with a hiss. The testing chamber was exactly as described. It was a square room with gray walls reinforced with some kind of metal. The ceiling was high, maybe 5 meters up. Weapons lined the walls on racks that glowed with soft blue light. Taiyang saw plasma rifles, energy blades that hummed with power, projectile weapons that looked like advanced machine guns, and grenades of various types. In the center of the room sat a simple metal desk. On the desk was a single sheet of material. This was the test paper, containing information about the weapons and the rules of the test. "Candidate ready?" Veltar's voice came through hidden speakers. "You have 15 minutes to prepare. Study the weapons. Choose your strategy. The drones will activate when time expires. Good luck, human. You will need it." The door sealed behind Taeyang with a heavy thud. He was alone now. Taeyang walked to the nearest weapon rack and picked up a plasma rifle. It felt wrong in his hands immediately. Too heavy, balanced incorrectly. He checked the power settings and frowned. The energy output was calibrated for something with thicker skin and higher heat resistance. If a human fired this, the blowback heat could cause serious burns. He moved to the next weapon. Energy blade, beautiful design, but the grip was too large for human hands. The activation stud required pressure that would cramp his fingers in seconds. Taeyang checked each weapon systematically. Grenades with timing sequences too fast for human reflexes. Projectile weapons with recoil dampeners set for beings twice his body mass. Every single weapon in this room was wrong. Not randomly wrong. Deliberately wrong. Someone had sabotaged this test chamber for humans. Taeyang felt cold realization settle in his stomach. This was not a fair test. This was a setup designed to make humans fail. Whoever calibrated these weapons wanted Earth's warriors to look weak and incompetent. He had 10 minutes left before the drones activated. 10 minutes to find a way to win with weapons designed to cripple him. Taeyang walked back to the desk and picked up the test paper. It was made of some strange material, stiff but flexible, with a smooth surface. He held it up to the light and examined it closely. Then slowly, he began to smile. If they would not give him proper weapons, he would make his own. Taeyang sat at the metal desk and spread the test paper flat in front of him. His military training kicked in automatically. First rule of combat when facing superior forces: know your enemy. Second rule, know your environment. Third rule, use everything. The test paper was large, about the size of an old Earth newspaper. The material felt unusual under his fingers. Not quite plastic, not quite paper. It had texture, but also strength. He tried to tear a corner gently. It resisted at first, then suddenly gave way with a clean rip. The edge where it tore was incredibly straight and sharp. Interesting. Taeyang read the information printed on the paper. Standard procedures, weapon specifications, safety protocols. All useless now that he knew the weapons were sabotaged. But the paper itself, this strange material, had potential. He had 9 minutes left. Back on Earth, during Special Forces training, instructors had taught him a crucial lesson. In the field, you will not always have the right equipment. You must improvise. A skilled warrior can kill with anything: a rock, a stick, even a piece of string. One instructor, an old veteran, had demonstrated ancient martial arts techniques using only folded paper. He had called it an art form from old Japan and Korea, where warriors trained with whatever they had. That demonstration had seemed like a curiosity then. Now it might save Taeyang's life. He began tearing the test paper into sections. Each piece he tore carefully, examining the edges. Yes, definitely sharp enough to cut skin, maybe even sharp enough to damage drone sensors. The paper was also rigid. When folded correctly, it could hold its shape under pressure. Taeyang's hands moved with practiced efficiency, folding one section into a tight tube. He pressed it together and twisted. The tube became incredibly hard, almost like a short baton. He struck it against the desk. Solid impact, no bending. 7 minutes, Taeyang created more tools. He folded triangular pieces with reinforced edges, small throwing weapons. He rolled another section into a longer tube, then flattened one end to create a striking surface. He tore thin strips and braided them together into a cord strong enough to bind or trip. His hands worked while his mind calculated. The drones would be small, probably sphere-shaped based on the hologram he saw earlier. They would have sensors for targeting. weapons for stunning and propulsion systems for movement. Every machine had weaknesses. Cooling vents, exposed optical arrays, power couplings. 5 minutes. In the control room above, Velthar watched the monitoring screen with confusion. The human was not practicing with weapons. He was not studying attack patterns. He was sitting at a desk, tearing paper like a child doing crafts. "What is the human doing?" asked another observer, a being with purple skin and too many eyes. "I do not know," Velthar replied. His crystalline features could not show expression, but his voice carried doubt. Perhaps the stress has broken his mind. Hayori watched from a different screen in the waiting area. Other candidates around her whispered and laughed. The human was making toys while combat drones prepared to hunt him, but Hayori did not laugh. She knew Taeyang. When he looked calm, he was most dangerous. 3 minutes. Taeyang stood and tested his improvised weapons. The paper baton felt good in his hand. Light but solid. The throwing pieces had proper weight. The cord was strong. Not ideal, but far better than weapons designed to fail him. He positioned himself in the center of the room, away from walls where drones might corner him. He held the baton in his right hand and 3 throwing pieces in his left. More tools were tucked into his belt and pockets. 2 minutes, Taeyang controlled his breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow and steady. His heart rate dropped. His mind cleared. This was not the first time he had faced bad odds. On Earth, he had survived situations that should have killed him. He survived by thinking differently than enemies expected. 1 minute. The lights in the chamber changed from white to red. A warning alarm sounded once, sharp and loud. Then silence. Taeyang heard mechanical sounds from the walls. Panels sliding open. Motors activating 0. 6 spherical drones emerged from hidden ports in the ceiling and walls. Each was about the size of a basketball, covered in dark metal that reflected the red light. Blue glowing sensors swept across the room, searching. They spotted Taeyang immediately. The drones spread out in formation, surrounding him. Professional tactics. They were not just machines. They were smart. Taeyang did not move. He watched, calculated distances and angles. The drones hovered at different heights. Weapons ports visible on their surfaces. Small energy weapons, probably stunners set to incapacitate. The first drone fired a blue bolt of energy. Taeyang moved. His body dropped low and spun. The bolt passed over his head and struck the wall. He came up fast and threw one of his paper pieces in a single smooth motion. The triangular projectile spun through the air and hit the drone's optical sensor with surprising force. The sharp edge sliced through the exposed lens. The drone jerked sideways, its targeting damaged. It fired wildly, missing by meters. 2 more drones fired together. Taeyang was already moving, rolling behind the desk. Energy bolts scorched the metal. He grabbed the desk and shoved it hard toward the nearest drone. The desk hit with a heavy crash, knocking the drone into the wall. 3 drones left fully operational. Taeyang sprinted toward the weapon racks. Not to grab weapons, but to use them as cover. The drones tracked him, firing continuously. He weaved between the racks, and energy bolts destroyed alien weapons instead of hitting him. Plasma rifles exploded, sending sparks everywhere. Good, Taeyang thought. Let them destroy their own sabotaged equipment. He grabbed one of the broken plasma rifles and threw it at a pursuing drone. The heavy weapon struck the machine and sent it tumbling. While it recovered, Taeyang threw another paper projectile. This one hit perfectly, jamming into a cooling vent. The drone made a grinding noise and smoke poured from its housing. 2 operational drones left. These last 2 were learning. They stayed back, firing from different angles to limit Taeyang's mobility. He could not dodge forever. He needed a new approach. Taeyang pulled out his paper cord. He waited until both drones fired, then threw the cord like a lasso. It wrapped around one drone's body. He yanked hard, pulling the drone off balance and swinging it into its partner. The 2 machines collided with a satisfying crunch. While they were tangled together, Taeyang rushed forward. He used his paper baton like a sword, striking hard at sensor arrays and weapon ports. The rigid tube held its shape, delivering solid impacts. One drone's casing cracked. The other tried to escape, but Taeyang grabbed it from the air and smashed it against the floor. Silence fell over the chamber. 6 drones lay scattered across the room, damaged or destroyed. Taeyang stood among them, breathing hard, covered in sweat. In his hands were torn pieces of paper and broken test materials. The timer on the wall showed 11 minutes had passed since the drones activated. Velthar's voice came through the speakers. But for the first time, it carried no confidence. Candidate Taeyang Park, the test is complete. Please exit the chamber. Taeyang looked up at where he knew the cameras were watching. He held up a piece of torn test paper and smiled. Should I keep this as a souvenir? He asked. The door to the testing chamber opened and Taeyang walked out. He still carried pieces of torn paper in his hands. His uniform was dirty with soot from exploded equipment. His hair was messy, but he was smiling. The corridor outside was filled with beings who had been watching on monitors. They stared at him in complete silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They simply stared at the human who had just done something impossible. Hiyori pushed through the crowd and grabbed Taeyang's shoulders. You crazy fool, she said in Korean, but she was grinning. You actually weaponized the test paper? It worked, did it not? Taeyang replied calmly. Before Hiyori could respond, Velthar appeared. The massive crystalline being moved through the crowd like a ship cutting through water. Other species stepped aside quickly. When Velthar stopped in front of Taeyang, the temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. That was not a proper completion of the test, Velthar said. His voice echoed with anger that he did not try to hide. I neutralized all combat drones, Taeyang said. That was the objective. Using approved armory equipment, Velthar shot back. You did not use any approved weapons. Taeyang held up a piece of torn paper. The test paper was in the chamber. It was provided material. I used what you gave me. That is not a weapon. It is now, Taeyang said simply. The crowd murmured. Some species made sounds that might have been laughter. Others seemed confused. A few looked angry on Velthar's behalf. The test is invalid, Velthar declared. You will take it again properly this time. No, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Walking down the corridor was a female with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold stars. She wore robes that marked her as someone important. This was Mirai, a representative from the Watcher Collective. The Watchers were an ancient species that rarely involved themselves in academy politics. When they spoke, people listened. The candidate completed the stated objective, Mirai said calmly. All drones were neutralized. The time was 11 minutes, which ranks as the third fastest completion in the test's history. These are facts recorded by your own automated systems. Velthar's crystal body seemed to darken. He did not follow proper procedure. Show me where the rules specifically forbid using materials present in the chamber, Mirai said. Her voice was soft but carried absolute authority. Velthar opened his mouth and closed it. He could not answer because no such rule existed. The test had never needed that rule before. Nobody had ever thought to weaponize office supplies. I demand a review of his test chamber, Hiyori said suddenly, stepping forward. I want the weapons examined. What are you suggesting? Velthar asked dangerously. I am suggesting that if Taeyang found the approved weapons unsuitable, perhaps there was a reason, Hiyori said. Her sharp eyes fixed on Velthar. Perhaps those weapons were not calibrated correctly for human physiology. The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. This was a serious accusation. Sabotaging test equipment was a crime under Academy law. Check the weapons, Mirai ordered. Now. What happened next took 3 hours. Technicians entered Taeyang's test chamber and examined every weapon. They ran diagnostics, checked calibrations, and compared settings to standard specifications. The results were damning. Every single weapon had been improperly calibrated. Plasma rifles would cause burns to human skin. Energy blades had grips too large for human hands. Grenades had timing sequences too fast for human reflexes. Projectile weapons would break human wrists with their recoil. The technicians found similar problems in all chambers assigned to human candidates. Someone had systematically sabotaged equipment to ensure human failure. The news spread through Apex Prime like fire. Within hours, representatives from dozens of species were demanding answers. The humans were new to the galactic community, yes, but this was not how honorable species behaved. If the Academy could cheat humans today, which species would they target tomorrow? An emergency council was called. The meeting took place in a massive chamber, where representatives from all Academy members gathered. Taeyang and Hiyori were required to attend as witnesses. They sat in a section reserved for junior officers and watched as alien politics unfolded. Velthar was questioned first. He claimed ignorance of the sabotage. He was merely the testing administrator, not responsible for equipment calibration. That responsibility belonged to the Armory division. The Armory division head was brought forward. He was a being with gray skin and multiple arms named Kanto. He looked nervous as powerful species demanded explanations. The calibrations were set according to specifications provided, Kanto said, his four hands gesturing frantically. I followed the orders I received. Orders from whom? Demanded a representative from the warrior Krathan species. Kanto hesitated. Then he named names. A supremacist faction within the academy had been working to exclude humans. They believed humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. Better to fail them in tests than to give them access to advanced military training and equipment. The irony was not lost on anyone. By sabotaging the weapons, the faction had forced humans to demonstrate exactly the kind of dangerous creativity they feared. Taeyang was called to speak. He stood before the council, a single human among giants and beings of pure energy and creatures that defied easy description. Captain Taeyang Park, said the council leader, an ancient being whose species name humans could not pronounce. You completed the Armory proficiency test using unconventional methods. Explain your reasoning. Taeyang took a breath. I am a soldier. I have been a soldier for 10 years. In that time I learned that war does not care about your plans. Equipment fails. Supplies run out. Allies fall. The only constant is that you must adapt or die. He pulled out a piece of torn test paper he had kept. When I saw that the weapons were sabotaged, I had two choices. Surrender or find another way. Surrender is not in my nature, so I looked around and asked myself, what can I use? The answer was everything. The desk, the weapon racks. And this paper. He held the paper higher. My instructors on Earth taught me that a true warrior is not defined by his weapons. He is defined by his mind and his will to survive. Give a good warrior a sword and he will fight. Give him nothing and he will make a sword from whatever he finds. The chamber was completely silent. Species that had lived for thousands of years looked at this young human with new understanding. You humans are frightening, said the Krathan representative, but there was respect in his voice. We are survivors, Taeyang corrected. We come from a world that tried very hard to kill us. Ice ages, predators, diseases, wars among ourselves. We survived all of it by refusing to give up and by using our minds. That is what makes us human. Mirai from the Watcher Collective stood. I propose that Captain Taeyang Park's test results be officially validated. Furthermore, I propose that the Armory proficiency test be reformed to include evaluation of adaptive thinking and resource utilization. Seconded, said three other representatives immediately. The vote was called. When it finished, Taeyang's results were official. He had passed. More than that, he had changed the test itself forever. The week after the council decision was strange for Taeyang. He became famous overnight. Everywhere he went on Apex Prime, beings stopped to stare. Some approached him to ask questions about his technique. Others wanted to challenge him to matches. A few species representatives asked if Earth would be interested in military trade agreements. Taeyang handled the attention with quiet professionalism, but he was relieved when his actual assignment finally came through. He was to report to Stellar Guard Special Operations Division, Section Gamma. The briefing room for Section Gamma was smaller than Taeyang expected. It was a simple space with gray walls and a long table. Already seated were 5 other humans, all of whom had taken the Armory test in the days following Taeyang's famous completion. Hiyori was there, of course. Next to her sat Junho, a stocky man with scars on his hands from explosives training. Across from them were twins named Inha and Suji, both snipers known for impossible shots. At the far end sat Doyun, the youngest of the group, but a technical genius who could hack any system. The gang's all here, Hiyori said when Taeyang entered. Welcome to the Rejects Club. Rejects? Taeyang asked, taking a seat. That is what some species are calling us, Junho explained with a grin. The humans who could not use weapons properly, so they had to improvise like primitives. I prefer creative, Suji said. I prefer successful, Inha added. We all passed. That is what matters. The door opened again, and in walked a being that made everyone straighten in their chairs. He was Varric, a Krathan warrior with 4 arms and a chest full of military decorations. His gray skin had scars that told stories of countless battles. He was a legend in the Stellar Guard. At ease, Varric said in a voice like grinding stone. He looked at each human carefully. You are probably wondering why you have been grouped together. The answer is simple. You are all troublemakers. Nobody spoke. Varek's 4 hands moved to rest on the table. The Stellar Guard has operated for 2 centuries on principles of order, procedure, and standardized tactics. These principles work well against conventional threats, but the galaxy is changing. We face enemies that do not fight by rules, pirates who use asteroids as weapons, terrorist cells that hide in civilian populations, rogue AI that adapt faster than our protocols. Varek's eyes focused on Taiyang. Then you humans arrived and showed us something we had forgotten. Adaptation. When facing the unexpected, you do not freeze. You do not demand that reality follow your procedures. You change your procedures to match reality. He pulled out a data tablet and placed it on the table. Images appeared above it, holographic displays of various hostile situations. Section Gamma is being reformed as an experimental unit. Your mission will be to handle situations that standard Stellar Guard tactics cannot solve. You will operate with minimal resources. You will face enemies with superior numbers and technology. You will be expected to win anyway. Sounds terrible, Doyun said. When do we start? Varek showed what might have been a smile. Krathan faces were hard to read. Immediately. Your first mission launches in 3 days. But first we need to address something. He pulled up another image. It showed a wanted notice for several members of the faction that had sabotaged human testing equipment. Most had been arrested, but a few had fled into neutral space. Kanto, the former Armory division head, is among those who escaped, Varek said. Intelligence suggests he has joined a pirate group operating near the outer bands. This group has been attacking transport ships. You want us to catch him? Hayori said. I want you to stop the pirates, Varek corrected. If you happen to capture Kanto in the process, that would be convenient. But the mission priority is protecting civilian ships. He switched the display to show a star map. A red zone indicated pirate territory. The pirate base is located in an asteroid field, heavily defended. Traditional assault would require a full battle group and result in high casualties. The Stellar Guard does not wish to commit those resources for a minor pirate cell. So you send 6 humans instead, Junho said. I send 6 humans who have proven they can succeed with nothing, Varek said. You will have 1 small ship, basic weapons and standard equipment. No heavy artillery, no fleet support. Figure it out. Taiyang studied the star map. The asteroid field was dense, perfect for hiding a base. Getting close without detection would be nearly impossible with a conventional approach. But if they were not using conventional approaches, what kind of ship? Taiyang asked. Courier class. Fast, lightly armored. Designed for carrying messages, not fighting wars. Perfect, Taiyang said. Everyone looked at him. Varek's expression was unreadable. Perfect, Hayori repeated. How is a courier ship perfect for assaulting a pirate base? Because nobody expects a courier ship to be dangerous, Taiyang explained. Pirates see a small civilian vessel. They think easy prey. They let it get close. Understanding dawned on the faces around the table. Inha leaned forward. We disguise ourselves as a target. We let them think they are hunting us, Suji added, completing her twin's thought. And when they get close enough to board. Junho made a gesture like an explosion. Doyun was already typing on his personal tablet. I can modify our ship's signature to look like we are carrying valuable cargo. Maybe even fake a distress signal to make us seem helpless. Varek watched the humans plan with something that might have been satisfaction. You have 3 days to prepare. Use them well. Dismissed. As the others filed out, Varek stopped Taiyang with one large hand on his shoulder. Captain Park, a word. When they were alone, Varek spoke quietly. You know that many species still doubt humans. They see your methods as reckless, dangerous. I know, Taiyang said. Good. Because this mission is your chance to prove them wrong, or prove them right. Varek released his shoulder. The galaxy is watching your species. Show them what humans can do. Later that evening, the 6 human members of Gamma Squad met in their assigned quarters. The space was basic but functional, with bunks and a common area. They spread out maps and data files across a table, planning their approach. "We need a name," Doyen said suddenly. "We have a name," Hiyori replied. "Gamma Squad." "No, I mean like a real name, something that defines us." Doyen looked at Taiyang. "You started all this by using paper as a weapon. Maybe we should embrace that." Junho laughed. "What, you want to call ourselves the Paper Squad?" "The Paper Cuts," Suji suggested. The room went quiet. Then slowly, smiles appeared. "I like it," Inha said. "It is ridiculous," Hiyori protested, but she was smiling too. "It is perfect," Taiyang decided. "They will underestimate us until we cut them." The name stuck. By the next morning, rumors had already spread through Apex Prime. The humans had named themselves the Paper Cuts. Some aliens found it amusing. Others found it insulting that warriors would choose such a silly name. None of them understood that it was exactly the point. Let them laugh, let them underestimate. That was when paper cuts were most dangerous. 3 days later, a small courier ship left Apex Prime and headed toward the outer bands. Inside were 6 humans, and a plan that no traditional military commander would ever approve. They were going to infiltrate a pirate base, rescue captured civilians, stop future attacks, and if possible, capture a war criminal, armed with basic weapons, creative minds, and a willingness to turn anything into tools of war. The galaxy was about to learn what human soldiers could really do. The courier ship drifted through the asteroid field like wounded prey. Its engines sputtered and sparked, sending out distress signals that screamed of malfunction and helplessness. Inside the ship, the 6 members of Paper Cuts waited in silence. Picking up scanner activity, Doyen reported from the pilot seat. His fingers moved across the console, reading the incoming data. 3 ships moving toward our position. Pirate signatures confirmed. "Good," Taiyang said calmly. He stood in the cargo bay with the others, checking equipment one final time. They wore light armor and carried basic weapons. Nothing impressive. Nothing that would make pirates cautious. The pirates thought they were hunting an easy target. They had no idea the prey was actually the predator. Through the window, the pirate ships came into view. They were ugly vessels built from stolen parts and salvaged military equipment. The largest one had weapons that could tear apart the courier ship in seconds. But pirates preferred to capture ships intact. More profit that way. "This is Pirate Vessel Red Fang," a harsh voice came through the communications. "Your ship is now our property. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist and we will kill you." Doyen responded in a shaking voice, playing his role perfectly. "Please, we are just carrying medical supplies. We have families. Take the cargo but let us live," the pirate laughed. "We will take everything. Open your cargo bay doors." "They are damaged," Doyen lied. "You will have to cut through." More laughter from the pirates. "Stupid merchants. Stay where you are." The pirate ships moved closer. One attached itself to the courier ship with magnetic clamps. The sound of cutting torches echoed through the hull. The pirates were burning through the cargo bay door. Hiyori looked at Taiyang and nodded once. They were ready. The cargo door fell inward with a crash. Smoke poured through the opening. 5 pirates entered, weapons raised. They wore mixed armor and looked confident. Easy job, terrified merchants. Quick profit. Then they saw what was waiting in the cargo bay. The space was empty except for 6 humans standing in a line. The humans were not cowering. They were smiling. And in their hands were the strangest weapons the pirates had ever seen. Before the pirates could react, Paper Cuts attacked. Taiyang moved first, throwing what looked like a simple metal rod. It struck the lead pirate's weapon, knocking it from his hands. Junyo followed with a canister that exploded into thick foam, blinding 2 pirates. The twins, Inha and Suji, used lengths of cable as whips wrapping around legs and arms, pulling pirates off balance. Hiyori slid across the floor and swept a pirate's feet out from under him. As he fell, she struck pressure points that made him go unconscious immediately. Doyen stayed back but controlled the ship's internal systems, sealing doors and venting air from specific corridors to confuse reinforcements. The 5 pirates went down in less than 30 seconds. They had expected frightened merchants. They got professional soldiers. "Cargo bay secure," Taiyang reported. Moving to Phase 2, the plan was simple. Now that they were connected to the pirate ship, they would infiltrate it, Free any prisoners, gather intelligence on the base location and escape before the pirates realized what happened. The paper cuts moved through the captured pirate vessel like ghosts. They used everything around them as tools. Maintenance pipes became clubs. Cable became rope for traps. Even the artificial gravity system became a weapon when Doyen adjusted it to make certain corridors impossible to walk through. They found the prisoner holding area deep in the ship. Inside were 12 beings from various species, all captured from raided transport vessels. The prisoners looked up in surprise as humans in stellar guard armor appeared. "We are here to rescue you," Hiyori said simply. "Stay quiet and follow us." One prisoner, an elderly being with blue skin, shook his head. "The pirates have 20 warriors on this ship. You are only 6. We know," Taeyang said. "That is why we have the advantage. They will not expect us." As if to prove his point, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The pirates had discovered their boarding party was captured. "Change of plans," Taeyang said calmly. "Doyen, can you fly this pirate ship?" Doyen's eyes went wide. "You want to steal their ship?" "I want to use their ship to get us into the base. They will not shoot at their own vessel." Understanding spread through the squad. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of plan that worked for humans. What followed was chaos. The paper cuts split into teams. Yunyo and the twins secured the engine room and took control of propulsion. Hiyori and Taeyang fought their way to the bridge, using improvised weapons and their environment against pirates who had better equipment, but worse tactics. Doyun hacked the ship's systems from a maintenance terminal. The pirates fought hard, but they were not prepared for enemies who turned every part of the ship against them. Storage containers became shields. Cleaning chemicals became irritants. Even the fire suppression system became a weapon when Doyen triggered it at the right moment, flooding pirate positions with foam. When the smoke cleared, the paper cuts controlled the pirate vessel. The rescued prisoners stared in disbelief. 6 humans had captured a ship meant to hold 30 pirates. "Now for the hard part," Taeyang said. They flew the stolen pirate ship toward the asteroid base. As predicted, the base defenses did not fire. They saw one of their own vessels returning and assumed it was friendly. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was too late. The paper cuts crashed the pirate ship directly into the base's docking bay. The impact destroyed defenses and created chaos. In the confusion, they escaped through emergency exits and split up to accomplish multiple objectives. Taeyang and Hiyori hunted for Kanto. They found him in a command center, trying to escape through back corridors. When he saw them, his forearms raised in surrender immediately. "Please," Kanto begged. "I was following orders. I did not want to sabotage your tests." "Then you should have refused those orders," Taeyang said coldly. "Now you will face justice." Meanwhile, Junho planted charges on the base's weapon systems. The twins rescued more prisoners found in the base's detention area. Doyen hacked into the base computers and copied all data about pirate operations, locations of other cells, and planned attacks. The mission should have been impossible. 6 humans against a fortified pirate base. But the pirates had made a crucial mistake. They thought in terms of firepower and numbers. The humans thought in terms of adaptation and opportunity. 20 minutes after crashing into the base, the paper cuts escaped on a commandeered pirate transport. Behind them, the base's weapons exploded from Junho's charges. Without defenses, the other pirates fled in panic, scattering into deep space where stellar guard patrols were waiting. The transport ship limped back to Apex Prime 3 days later. It carried 6 humans, 1 prisoner, rescued civilians, and intelligence that would lead to the destruction of a dozen other pirate operations. Varek was waiting at the docking bay when they arrived. He looked at the damaged transport ship, at the exhausted but victorious humans, and at Kanto in restraints. "Report," Varek said simply. "Mission successful," Taeyang replied. "All objectives completed. 0 friendly casualties. And you destroyed a pirate base with no heavy weapons and no fleet support," Varek said. "It was not a question. We used what we had," Taeyang said. "Same as always." Varek made that sound that might have been Krythan laughter. "You humans, you never do anything the normal way." "Normal gets you normal results," Hiyori said. "We were not sent to be normal." The news of Paper Cut's success spread quickly. The story grew with each telling. 6 humans had infiltrated a pirate base, rescued prisoners, captured a war criminal and destroyed enemy capabilities using nothing but a courier ship and creativity. Some species were impressed. Others were disturbed. All of them were forced to admit that humans brought something new to the galaxy. Not better weapons or stronger bodies, something more dangerous. The refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. 6 months later, the paper cuts stood in their new headquarters on Apex Prime. The room was no longer basic quarters. It was a proper operations center with advanced equipment and a growing reputation. Other Stellar Guard units had started requesting human consultants to teach adaptive tactics. A new mission brief appeared on their display. Another impossible situation, another chance to prove what humans could do. Looks challenging, Doyen said, reading the details. Good, Junho replied. Easy missions are boring. The twins were already planning approaches. Hiyori was checking equipment supplies. Taeyang stood by the window looking out at the stars. A junior officer approached nervously. She was from a species that resembled walking plants. Captain Park, I have a question. Go ahead, Taeyang said. How do you always win? Your species lacks natural advantages. Your weapons are basic. Your resources are limited. Yet you succeed where others fail. What is your secret? Taeyang thought for a moment. Then he picked up a simple stylus from a nearby desk. He held it up. See this? To most beings it is a writing tool. Nothing more. But to a human this could be a lockpick, a weapon, a lever, a compass, a dozen other things if we needed it to be. He set the stylus down. That is the secret. We do not see things as they are. We see things as they could be. The officer tilted her head, processing this. So humans see potential where others see limits?